A single Ukrainian UAV struck a Russian bridge, and within seconds, the explosion transformed the entire battlefield. Shortly after 5:23 a.m., a Ukrainian kamikaze UAV emerged from the river mist, maintaining an altitude of barely 2 meters above the waterline before it crashed into the bridge's underside. The detonation occurred instantly. Steel and concrete debris launched over 30 meters skyward while shock waves swept across both riverbanks. The blast was later measured at several hundred kilograms of TNT equivalent before the sound waves dissipated. FPV drones, reaching speeds near 150 kilometers per hour, pushed through the smoke while transmitting live footage from the strike area. In just 4 minutes, radar systems disappeared, electronic communications went down, and several defensive installations went silent. A critical supply corridor transporting hundreds of millions in fuel and munitions began its collapse. As this scenario unfolds before you, consider this. If a single UAV achieves this result, where exactly does any safe zone exist? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Around 5:14 a.m., the river crossing showed no signs of change. Alerts remained silent. No warning flares pierced the darkness. The bridge maintained normal operations, supporting rear area logistics estimated at more than 900 tons daily in fuel, munitions, and equipment. To Russian forces, it represented just another routine span of steel and concrete. To Ukraine, it was a system ready for examination. The opening wave arrived fast and low. FPV drones maintained altitudes between 1.3 and 1.8 meters above the waterline, pushing speeds to nearly 145 kilometers per hour. Approximately 12 platforms breached the river boundary in near-perfect coordination. Some platforms carried charges under 1 kilogram. Others mounted only cameras, transmitting real-time video through fog and haze. Their objective was straightforward: compel the defensive systems to expose themselves. Shortly afterward, precision strikes hit observation stations and fortified positions approaching the bridge. Each detonation delivered no more than 20 to 30 kilograms of explosive power, yet the sequencing was calculated. Russian PKM machine guns responded immediately with sustained bursts from concealed positions 60 to 75 meters from the water's edge. Anti-drone barriers deployed upward between the concrete supports. Short-range defensive systems engaged independently rather than as an integrated network. Telemetry data surged. Thermal readings appeared. Firing positions became identifiable. A decoy drone drove straight into the engagement zone, drawing concentrated fire before it collided with defensive netting in a shower of sparks and wreckage. As gunners concentrated on that lone target, 8 more drones slipped under the bridge structure, exploiting blind spots the defenders hadn't identified. Within 90 seconds, Ukrainian intelligence had charted the initial defensive perimeter down to specific firing locations. This wasn't the main assault. This was the instant the bridge transitioned from protected to vulnerable. Following the initial exposure, Ukraine escalated pressure without increasing speed. An additional wave of FPV drones, roughly 18 platforms, penetrated the corridor, compelling Russian gunners to divide their attention across multiple elevations. Their approach remained controlled and measured. The mission had evolved beyond reconnaissance to provocation. Calculated, smaller explosions continued. Strikes equivalent to 15 to 30 kilograms of TNT landed near weapon positions and net attachment points along the bridge approach. The explosions weren't designed for outright destruction. They were synchronized to force crews into movement, reloading, and repositioning under stress. Every adjustment created fresh vulnerabilities. The Russian defensive response grew more intense yet disjointed. PKM machine guns fired intersecting patterns from stations 50 to 70 meters beyond the shoreline. Anti-drone barriers lifted, fell, then lifted once more. Electronic countermeasure systems activated in 2 to 3 second bursts before going offline, operators attempting stealth while maintaining operational control. Instead, every pulse highlighted the fundamental issue. The systems were responding reactively, not operating cohesively. A single drone climbed into open sight deliberately. It absorbed concentrated fire for approximately 5 seconds, drawing multiple weapon systems toward one target. When it exploded against a concrete column in a brilliant flash, all attention fixed on the detonation site. Meanwhile, over a dozen drones penetrated through, staying tight to the bridge's underside and weaving through gaps the defenders could no longer monitor. After 4 minutes, Ukrainian command had quantified everything critical: reaction intervals, firing constraints, and electronic defense gaps measured to the second. So reflect on this. When a defense must react continuously, how long until it fractures? Because after this phase concluded, the following stage wouldn't test the barrier, it would pierce directly through. At 5:26 a.m., the critical strike commenced. A synchronized assault hammered the defensive nucleus surrounding the bridge. For HIMARS rocket struck within an 8-second interval. Each precision-guided munition landed inside a 15 to 20 meter radius of its designated target. The explosions overlapped violently. Earthworks and fortifications crumbled. Radar installations ruptured. Shock waves propagated outward, collapsing sandbag walls and throwing personnel to the earth. Sensors subsequently calculated the aggregate blast force at well beyond 1 ton of TNT equivalent, delivered with near simultaneous accuracy. The operational airspace transformed instantly. Before the smoke dispersed, the airspace changed again. Su-27 fighters descended to lower elevations, cutting through fragmented cloud cover at velocities exceeding 800 kilometers per hour. Beneath them, Russian electronic warfare systems surged back online in desperation. Jamming equipment pulsed active, saturating frequencies for 2 to 4 second intervals, trying to re-establish dominance. Each transmission proved catastrophic. Anti-radiation missiles launched in quick succession, tracking the emissions with meter-level precision. Every signal converted into a target. Every recovery attempt revealed another node. Then the electronic defensive layer disintegrated. From high elevation, a heavy kamikaze UAV angled sharply downward, accelerating beyond 300 kilometers per hour as it acquired an RB-341V Lear-3 jamming vehicle hidden less than 180 meters within the forest edge. The drone impacted center mass. The detonation overturned the vehicle, destroying antenna systems and severing power immediately. Signal coverage across the sector vanished completely. The consequences cascaded rapidly. Communications degraded to noise. Radar coverage disappeared. Gun crews lost coordination and fields of fire dissolved into chaos. Ukrainian artillery capitalized on the breach with guided ammunition, each round landing within 10 meters of identified positions. Survivors evacuated emplacements under increasing pressure. In under 5 minutes, a multi-layered defensive network valued at tens of millions of dollars fragmented into isolated pieces. The bridge stood intact, but its entire protective umbrella had vanished. It possessed no defenses, no concealment, and no early warning remaining. The battlefield wasn't being influenced anymore, it was now exposed, and the subsequent action would determine everything. With defensive coverage eliminated, the operational rhythm shifted immediately. Ukrainian armored units pushed forward from hidden positions along the ridgeline. T-84 main battle tanks surged across exposed terrain, engines thundering as dust clouds rose behind them. BTR-4 infantry carriers followed closely at 40 to 60 meter intervals, sustaining momentum while limiting vulnerability. The advance traversed nearly 600 meters in less than 2 minutes, fast enough to prevent enemy reorganization. This movement operated with intelligence. Overhead, FPV drones maintained positions at 120 to 180 meters, transmitting continuous intelligence on geography, barriers, and developing threats. As Ukrainian elements neared the bridgehead, opposition emerged from the far tree line. T-72 tanks advanced, cannons leveled, attempting to reclaim control of the crossing. The initial round fell short, scattering earth and fragments across the lead BTR's path. The column maintained advance. Then the counterstrike arrived. From altitude, an FPV suicide drone descended and impacted the turret of the leading T-72. The explosion was contained but conclusive. The hatch blew clear, flames erupted upward, and the crippled tank obstructed the narrow corridor. The second T-72 diverted, breaking formation and halting the counteroffensive within moments. Ukrainian infantry deployed immediately. Teams dismounted behind armored cover, dispersing along the riverbank in rapid movements of 20 to 30 meters. Grenade launchers neutralized remaining defensive positions while rifles provided covering fire. Within minutes, resistance around the bridgehead weakened. What had constituted organized defense deteriorated into scattered resistance as pressure intensified. Engineer teams advanced with portable equipment, initiating swift clearance operations along the embankments. Their mission wasn't reconstruction, it was establishing access. Every meter secured strengthened Ukraine's grip on the crossing. By the time smoke cleared, the tactical picture was evident. Russian forces had lost operational initiative. Access routes were compromised. The bridge remained ahead, isolated, vulnerable, and no longer reinforced. The opportunity created in minutes now required a conclusive decision. And the next action wouldn't concern crossing the bridge. It would concern destroying it. With the bridgehead secured, Ukraine didn't immediately move to demolish the crossing. They stopped and examined more closely. Through the smoke and wreckage, Ukrainian engineers progressed along the embankments, advancing in 10 to 15 meter increments. Their focus wasn't the roadway above, but the infrastructure itself. Along the concrete supports, they discovered what Russian forces had installed weeks prior: a networked demolition system embedded deep beneath the span. Heavy cables traced along the girders, vanishing into shadows under the bridge deck. It was a defensive measure designed to halt an advance. Instead, it became an asset. Analysis verified the configuration rapidly. Over 24 TM62 anti-tank mines, each approximately 9 to 10 kilograms, were integrated into a unified detonation network. Fully activated, the combined yield would approximate over 7 tons of TNT, concentrated directly into the bridge's primary load-bearing structure. Manual removal would require hours. Conventional neutralization would demand specialized equipment and extended exposure. Ukraine selected a more efficient approach. From a hidden launch position upriver, an FPV Vampire drone descended to minimal altitude, flying just 4 to 5 meters above the waterline. Its velocity was intentionally reduced to preserve control as it slipped beneath the bridge deck. Above, small arms fire echoed through the air, but engagement angles were inadequate. The drone stayed close to the steel framework, utilizing the structure itself as protection. Guided by live intelligence from engineers below, the drone navigated between structural beams and tables, covering the final distance at pedestrian speed. Its shaped charge aligned with a single pressure sensor, the ignition point of the entire network. There was no alternative attempt. The detonation occurred immediately. One mine triggered, then the next. Then the complete sequence executed in cascading thunder. More than 25 TM62 mines detonated consecutively, lifting the bridge deck skyward before tearing it apart. Concrete shattered, steel ruptured. A column of water and debris launched skyward exceeding 30 meters, falling back across both shores. When the shock wave subsided, the central span had disappeared. Russia's own demolition strategy had eliminated the crossing, and with the bridge removed, the engagement was no longer about controlling the river. It concerned the ramifications that would emerge. The bridge collapse resonated across the valley, but combat didn't conclude with concrete plunging into the river. Within seconds, Russian artillery responded. 122mm howitzers concealed on the distant bank commenced firing, shells arcing from beyond 8 to 10 kilometers. Impacts ripped through the approach zones, creating craters several meters across and forcing Ukrainian units to reposition under fire. Dust and smoke swept across the riverbank as the earth trembled again. Ukraine had expected the response. High above the tree line, a large kamikaze UAV adjusted course and descended, its optics fixing on the muzzle flashes of the firing artillery. Traveling at velocities exceeding 280 kilometers per hour, the drone struck the first howitzer directly, neutralizing it instantly. A second UAV followed shortly after, striking another gun emplacement concealed beneath camouflage netting. Within less than 90 seconds, the artillery threat was eliminated. With indirect fire suppressed, Ukrainian forces consolidated control. Infantry squads progressed systematically along the riverbank, advancing in 20 to 25 meter bounds. Remaining defensive positions were neutralized and secured, forcing surviving defenders to retreat or surrender equipment. Several disoriented soldiers were extracted from cover and detained as the defensive line collapsed. Focus then extended beyond the river. Long-range reconnaissance drones climbed to elevations near 3,000 meters, surveying deep into rear territories. Thermal imaging tracked a Russian fuel and ammunition convoy approaching from 12 to 15 kilometers away, unaware the crossing no longer functioned. When intelligence reached command, the directive was instantaneous. The convoy stopped and diverted onto alternate roads, adding over 80 kilometers to its journey. The strategic situation became clear rapidly. The bridge was beyond salvage. The central span lay fragmented in the riverbed, with debris sections weighing 30 to 40 tons, far exceeding the capacity of field equipment. Russia's supply network was redirected onto longer, exposed corridors, now well within range of precision strikes. As smoke drifted across the water, the battlefield grew quiet, not because combat had ceased, but because this engagement's result was already determined. When the dust settled, the bridge had vanished, but the significance exceeded destroyed concrete. In one operation, Ukraine demonstrated how timing, accuracy, and coordination can dismantle defenses constructed at substantially higher cost. A crossing that previously transported thousands of tons of supplies now connects to nothing, and every detour introduces additional vulnerabilities. This wasn't about superior firepower, but about comprehending the battlefield faster than the adversary. So consider, if modern warfare is determined in minutes through data and precision, how does any rear area remain secure? Share your perspective in the comments. And if you want more in-depth analysis like this, stay with us and subscribe.